you want to learn, if you want to know more about the Caribbean, you start with Jamaica first. Jamaica is the exit point of all these other Caribbeans. It's a very small island. It's a very small island with a population of only 3 billion, but it's punching above its weight, ladies and gentlemen.
What is the magic about this place, Jamaica? Well, it's still people, we're a spicy island. Big up anybody from any part of the Caribbean, but I have pride on Jamaica and what our little dot has brought forth in international culture from people like Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
She was speaking in Jamaican Patois. She was very amazing, very nice. Speaking Jamaican Patois.
Tell them say you're born in Jamaica.
Me born in Jamaica, lady of the soil in Hampshire.
Yeah?
One little place in that country near Hampshire, me born.
You know,
Because I'm 77 years, me dep on Hershey right now.
Yes,
so me now gonna women, me a Jamaican. Daughter of the soil.
You what?
Jamaican. Daughter of the soil.
I remember you can't forget God,
Forget God, don't me forget God. Jesus is Lord of all.
That is it.
You hear me? So all about that.
Yes, Jamaica is the Mecca of the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we mean by the Mecca of the Caribbean? Mecca is an epicenter of all the Muslims people, where they go to pray. The Muslim people all around the world, they go to pray in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Now, what about Mecca of the Caribbean? What do we mean by when we say Jamaica is the Mecca of the Caribbean? Jamaica is the epicenter of the Caribbean culture and pride, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to learn, if you want to know more about the Caribbean, you start with Jamaica first. Jamaica is the exit point of all these other Caribbeans. It's a very small island. It's a very small island with a population of only 3 billion, but it's punching above its weight, ladies and gentlemen.
What is the magic about this place, Jamaica? Well, it's still people, we're a spicy island. Big up anybody from any part of the Caribbean, but I have pride on Jamaica and what our little dot has brought forth in international culture from people like Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Look at sports. Look at how it's leading in sports, ladies and gentlemen. Every season there's a new star, there's a new jet in terms of sports, ladies and gentlemen. Look at
you can't take away from the fact that we have made like a big stamp on this earth, whether it be sports, whether it be business-wise or music business-wise.
Jamaican Patois itself. Look at how powerful and amazing Jamaican Patois itself. Have you ever realized that when someone speaks Jamaican Patois, it doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter which part of the world they come from, but as long as they speak Jamaican Patois, ladies and gentlemen, you can already see a Jamaican in them. There's one China lady.
What going on?
Nothing, boy.
You know the thing AI.
True.
You know what AI is?
The artificial
intelligence. What you said the AI be?
Artificial intelligence.
She was speaking in Jamaican Patois. She was very amazing, very nice. Speaking Jamaican Patois.
Tell them say you're born in Jamaica.
Me born in Jamaica, lady of the soil in Hampshire.
Yeah?
One little place in that country near Hampshire, me born. Because I'm 77 years, me dep on Hershey right now. So me now gonna women, me a Jamaican. Daughter of the soil.
You what?
Jamaican. Daughter of the soil.
I remember you can't forget God,
Forget God, don't me forget God. Jesus is Lord of all.
That is it.
You hear me? So all about that.
If you're Jamaican and you can speak Jamaican Patois, be proud of yourself. So many people around the world, they try to mimic, they try to speak like a Jamaican, but it's very hard. It's very hard. It's not something that you can learn on the internet. No. Speaking Jamaican Patois, if you want to know how to speak it very well, you have to go to where Jamaicans are. Ladies and gentlemen, look at their food. Look at the food. Like I always say, you cannot counterfeit Jamaican food. You cannot fake Jamaican food. It is too sacred to fake Jamaican food. Even when you go to heaven, you will still see Jamaican food. You will still be served with Jamaican food. That is how special it is. It's one of the best meals I have ever tasted. And cooking is a mandatory skill among the Jamaican. If you have to be Jamaican, then you have to know how to cook. All Jamaicans know how to cook. Trust me. Jamaicans know how to cook. It's a mandatory skill that they learn from onset. Look at how they are leading. They are leading in terms of even sports, fashion, music, reggae. Reggae originated in Jamaica. It's a genre that has transversed across all nations. Wherever you go to Spain, you hear reggae. You go to Africa, you hear reggae. You go to the United States of America, you hear reggae. It's where reggae was born. It's also the home of heroes like Marcus Garvey Mosiah, the president of UNIA. It was formed in 1914, United Negro International Association and African Community League, with an aim of uniting black people all across the world. And he was arrested for it. That is why black people consider Marcus Garvey as the black Jesus. Why? Because he was crucified because of our sins. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. It is, if you want spiritual nourishment, like the way I have said, if you want spiritual nourishment, you go to where? You go to Jamaica. Yes, Jamaicans love the African people so much, ladies and gentlemen. They are one of the very few groups of people that have preserved the Africans' culture and traditions. For instance, the oral story culture. The oral story culture is among the Jamaican people. We have the drumming. The drumming is also found among the Jamaican people. Look at the Rastafari, ladies and gentlemen. Look at how they do the drumming, playing out the drums, ladies and gentlemen, among the Rastafari people. Their traditions and how they've kept their traditions going on. The Maroon and the Rastafari is somehow very similar to the African people, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, another thing is the hustle mentality among the Jamaican people. The hustle mentality and the Kenyan mentality hustle is quite very similar. These guys really hustle very hard. Have you ever, I have seen videos in Kingston Market, and I could not tell the difference between Kingston Market and Kenyan markets. The local vendors, they are trying to sell you something, even if they will overprice you. I like their friendly demeanor when they are trying to sell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I like their attitude and their friendly demeanor. They do not complain about tough economics. They do not complain, oh, my shop is this one. Oh, I have a small shop. No. Oh, I have a small, wooden shop. They don't complain about that. They hustle with all their mind and all their soul. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not acting like they are doing you a favor. They are not. If they are trying to sell, even if they overprice you, even if they overprice you into something, you will not notice. You will not notice because they are very friendly, ladies and gentlemen. So their attitude towards work is very nice. Very nice. Their attitude towards work is very nice, ladies and gentlemen. Just like my own country people, Kenya, is why Jamaica is very popular. Among all other Caribbean countries, is that the Jamaicans in diaspora, they carry along their flag with authority. They carry along their flag with pride, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it's easier to identify Jamaicans, ladies and gentlemen. You will not be confused. When you go to the US, you will always know a Jamaican. Trust me. There's one story of a Kenyan guy. I keep telling out this story, but it is very nice. You know, a Kenyan guy had one green card. He went to the USA. The person who was supposed to host him while in the USA, he did not show up in the airport. In the last minute, he did not show up. The guy got stuck in the airport. He had one green card. He's very new to the USA. He has never been to the USA. You know, the guy was stuck in the airport and getting confused where to start or where to go to. Guess the person who hosted this guy, he's a Kenyan, it's a Jamaican. It's a Jamaican who hosted this guy until he was back on his feet, until he was able to get a job. Ladies and gentlemen, a Kenyan, a Jamaican hosted this guy right in the airport. He was really stranded. Ladies and gentlemen, see how amazing Jamaican people are. See how amazing Jamaicans in diaspora are. Very friendly people, ladies and gentlemen. Hosting a Kenyan brother. They didn't care whether he's from Jamaica or whether he's from where, but they saw a guy who was stranded in the airport in USA. He had won a green card. The person who was supposed to host him did not show up at the airport in the last minute. That's amazing. That's a brotherly love, ladies and gentlemen. That's how friendly these guys are. Yes, you'll meet some bad ones. I'm not trying to say that. You'll meet some bad ones. But for most times, when you meet a good Jamaican, it's a good Jamaican. Reggae is UNESCO protected culture. No genre has ever received that kind of recognition. Yes, reggae is UNESCO protected culture, and it was started by the Jamaican people. Reggae is the birthplace. The birthplace of reggae is Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen. Reggae is one of the few genres that has transversed across all nations, across worldwide, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, look at how it has also been intertwined, even in Spain, Japan, and all these countries. They sing reggae, ladies and gentlemen. You know, that's a masterpiece. Reggae is a masterpiece. Okay. And you know one thing about reggae has also been, you know, when a country is about to go through liberations, they also sing reggae. When Jamaicans want to liberate with the African people, they sing reggae. When the Rastafari also wants to connect with their ancestors, they sing reggae, ladies and gentlemen. It's a spiritual awakening music. It's more than music, ladies and gentlemen. Reggae is very sacred, it's very pure, it can be used to send a message, it can be used for liberation, it's also used for entertainment, but for most part of reggae, if you listen to reggae, you know, most of the times it's sending out a message. This is why I love reggae. It's UNESCO protected. It's UNESCO protected. That shows how important reggae music is, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever seen random Jamaican conversation? You know, maybe they are talking in a group. Most times you will see them cracking jokes and laughing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans' conversation is not always boring. They are always cracking jokes. They are always making people laugh. You know, they are always lively. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what hardships they are going through. It doesn't matter whether they have money or they don't have money. But at the moment, you will see them cracking jokes, enjoying themselves, enjoying with the little they have, ladies and gentlemen. And you also want to go into that conversation, even though you don't understand Patois very well. You also want to go into, because it's, you know, there's a friend, you can almost get the demeanor among those people. You can almost get the enjoyment among those people. How they are cracking jokes, how they are making jokes, how they are turning a small conversation into a lively story, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it is. That's how it is. You know, this world is wicked, you know. This world is very wicked. In a wicked world, you have to be, you know, very strong. You have to be, you know, smile to the world. The world will smile back at you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Have you and also how they carry themselves with so much confidence. You know, you walk in a room of 100 people from different places, you will always spot a Jamaican. You always spot a Jamaican, how they talk, you know, how they carry themselves, how they work with authority and talk with authority. Most of them were born with leadership roles. Ladies and gentlemen, most of them are born with leadership roles. It's something that to be admired for. Yes, that area as an island has a problem. Just like any other country. Yes, there are crime problems there. Maybe there are kidnappings there. But for most part of it, you know, they are nice people.